Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin for your Taco Tuesday edition. Hope you had a great trading day out there. It was an okay one for me. Nothing really that exciting. Watching a couple trades, and I put on a couple new ones today with Palantir, but that's pretty much it. Kind of a quiet day. I apologize for those of you who were in my crypto program this morning. Apparently, I was supposed to teach the crypto program all day at Trading Academy, and I didn't have it on my calendar, so I missed that one. We'll remake that this coming Tuesday, or redo that for those of you who are part of the focus class out there, so my apologies. For those of you who were supposed to be in there, that was definitely my bad. All right, let's dive into the topic for today. I went into the mailbag. Well, new mail came in, and I was like, I'll just answer these questions as the headline for the show since I'm coming up blank with topic ideas. And this is the show topic for today. Time to buy airline stocks with a big question mark on there. No, not sure. This question came from Kevin. He says, was thinking of adding some airline stocks like American to my portfolio. What are your thoughts? And, we usually don't focus on this program too much on airline stocks. It's not really something that I have any expertise on. But I think the current political environment and geopolitical environment as well is going to have a big impact on these airline stocks. So let's go start there. We'll go with the one you mentioned first, Kevin, which is American Airlines. Don't worry, guys. We'll get to our broad markets and dive into all the different stuff that was said. I plan on talking about. We'll get Palantir on the plate today. We'll talk about MicroStrategy as well. I'm going to talk about Tesla, Rivian, and many other things. So we got a pretty full day for us. All right, we look at this United Airlines stock. Let's just go back to the peak we had in January of 2025. I mean, it was a phenomenal rally up there, but it also fell 55.56%, bottoming out on April 4th. Now, today, where we are right now, off of those highs we saw back from January of this year, we're still currently down 45%. So suffice it to say, this is well over double the pain point of the equity markets. For example, I'll bring up your S&P 500 here, and we'll go to, at its maximum point, the S&P was down 21.43%. Now we are currently down about 8.88% on the S&P. So airline stocks obviously getting crushed. And it's not just American. You could look at UAL, which is United Airlines. From peak to where we are today, United Airlines is down roughly about 37%. And let's take a Delta Airlines look. And again, I'm not going to look at all the airlines. There's just too many of them to look at, but I'm going for the big names here. About 36% for Delta as well. So we got United Airlines, American, and Delta, and Southwest is a little bit different, and I'll explain why here in just a second. So how about Boeing? We can certainly look at Boeing. I wouldn't call that an airline company. Obviously, you're a builder of airlines, which they've been looking great. Unfortunately, I never got to my entry price. Actually, I didn't pull the trigger on my entry price. You guys heard me saying I wanted to buy this at 140, and I passed it up. I was just too nervous about the $10 per share loss. I had this little yellow line drawn there back last year, but that earnings back in, which one was it? They were losing $10 per share. Yeah, it was back here in October of last year. The $10 per share loss just scared the heck out of me, so it removed Boeing from my decision process. Well, certainly Boeing will be impacted by airlines because if there's no demand for these airlines, then they're not going to have new aircraft or want to buy new aircraft. So, it's on the second of the show. Airline stock, nope. Anything that has wheels, gas, or whatever, I don't invest in because all of them have debt. The only one, Alaska Airlines, will have a little debt. Also, they have just tremendous volatility, Oliver. For me, that would probably be one of the main reasons I haven't, is they're just so driven by energy prices and we'll just say finicky consumer demand. So at a high level, from what I'm reading right now, airlines are struggling to find demand. People just are looking to, number one, not spend a lot of money. So, okay, let's not do big extravagant trips international, plus all the geopolitical tension around the world may have some people thinking, maybe I'm not going to go fly over to Europe right now just because of what's going on right now. So a lot of that, I think, drives the decision-making process. I, for one, know that I don't really care too much about geopolitical. I'm probably not going to go to Iran. I'm probably not going to go to Israel. I'm probably not going to go to Pakistan or Russia. But those weren't on my list anyway. If I got a great deal on an airline ticket to Thailand or Costa Rica, yeah, sure, I don't care. I'm going. Let's do it. So I might be a little bit different than most. Yeah, probably not going to go to Gaza. Not on my list, Margaret. Even in peaceful times, I'm just not quite comfortable going down there. So, how badly is that impacting them? Well, I'm looking at these charts here. Let's go back to American Airlines since that's what Kevin asked about. I guess if you're a long-term investor, you have to look back historically and see kind of how they fare. They have these wild swings, and on the grand scheme of things, I would think that airline stocks may actually be at a decent point to add for a long-term position. And here's why. If right now we have an environment of Americans that are kind of confused on what's going on with the trade wars, they're maybe a little bit apprehensive because I don't want to go to these countries if we're at odds with them. And you also have energy prices have been just tanking. Now, I know that USO is not the cost of jet fuel, but it's a relative proxy for the price of jet fuel. And here we have crude oil. Crude oil in that same window of time that airline stocks have fallen 50%, crude oil is still down 26%. Now, ultimately, this will benefit their bottom line. So there's areas where they're obviously hurting because of lack of demand from consumers. This is crude oil I have up here. I'll go back to American Airlines. They're certainly getting impacted by a lack of demand from consumers, but they're also starting to see maybe better profit margins because their energy costs have dropped significantly. Now, I am not an expert in airline stocks, but I know that they have this real cyclical pattern where they suffer for a while and all of a sudden they come roaring back. And I guess I would say that my belief would be that if you're of the assumption that we're going to have a resolution and this tension between the United States and Canada and Mexico and China and Europe and other parts of the world, that gets resolved fairly quickly, then I could see actually airline stocks being a great choice because if demand comes roaring back and they have their energy prices under control or much lower energy costs, which is one of their major costs of doing businesses, then their profit margins are going to be great. Now, is that going to impact them right now? No, absolutely not. You're probably not going to see that till at least their next earnings, which will probably be maybe July or even after that, going into September or October's earnings announcement. So I don't see this being a quick change. But, buying something at a 50% discount, even at current levels, American Airlines is still 45% off of its high. So I would argue that's probably a decent buy point, but you've got to be prepared for that long-term perspective on this one. This isn't something, that you're catching the falling knife and this is the absolute stopping point for American Airlines. It could certainly go much lower, and historical prices will show you lower prices than that. But one thing I noticed on the American Airlines price chart, if you look back all the way, let's put this on a weekly time frame to really take a peek at the big picture. The last time we were under, let's call it $8, $8.50. Last time we were under $8.50 was back in 2011. That's a long time. So we've really given back a considerable amount. And if you go back just how much American Airlines is down from those highs back in 2018, you're currently down roughly 82%. So I am in the camp of, I think these airline stocks will rebound. It's just a question of, are you buying the dead low right now? Or is there still more downside to move? My guess is it'll probably flounder around here, but I think you're getting a good deal if you do buy them at present levels, especially American considering its long-term picture here, although it's right back down towards that 850 mark, which is not good. Now let's look at Delta Airlines, another one. This picture is actually much better. And judging by the customer reviews of all my colleagues who travel extensively, I know a lot of instructors and traders and people who travel a lot, man, they have nothing good to say about American Airlines customer service and support and just the airline itself. And I'm hearing great things about Delta Airlines. So there you go. I don't know if you guys have feedback on that one as well, but I guess everybody has their own personal preferences on how they're treated. Yeah, Delta gets rave reviews. I was just talking to Larry a couple weeks ago, and he's like, man, I love Delta. I've never heard Larry say anything like that other than NVIDIA, where he says, I love NVIDIA. All right, we got Tim and Big Ed. We're both Delta fans here. Austin, it's funny because we've done that poll, people asking, dark charts or light charts, and actually the audience has chosen light charts. So majority democracy wins. Maybe I'll do another poll here down the road, but white charts has been what people have selected. A little bit easier, more of a pop to see, I guess. All right, so let's stack American up against Delta. Now, one thing that just jumps off the screen at me here on Delta, I know this is a very loose extrapolation of data, but you notice that these lows that are on Delta have been getting higher and higher for the past 5 years. Well, that's great, although we've had a significant sell-off here in Delta over the past, let's call it 6 months, right? Is that the buy point for Delta? I actually like the buy point on American better because it's a bottom. It's actually like a double bottom. However, This has been on a nice uptrend for the past 5 years. Again, probably a decent buy point if you're using that upsloping trend line I have on your screen as your demand zone. And then you've got UAL, the airline that I use and I'm not a fan of because they keep raising up their points to be used for travel, which, of course, was one of my big games I played for years. They've doubled the amount of points needed to travel to Thailand, so I hate United Airlines. But here's UAL. Looks decent, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. I'd put it third place of the three that we've looked at. I'd say American I'd like as a buy just because that solid double bottom. I like the Delta because of the uptrend. United is also looking fairly decent, at least on the weekly, because it's nowhere back to these lows that established back in 2022, 23, and 24. So not too bad. The question for you, Kevin, was, is it time to buy airline stocks? And I don't have a definitive answer. My comments, I think I've already said it, would be, what's your time frame? Are you thinking that this is the absolute bottom? Then I would buy a little bit, because they could certainly go lower. Out of the three we've looked at, I like the chart on American Airlines better. I know. You're like, well, it's all the way back down to those lows. It's important for me that low holds. Liz brings up a really good one, too. She says, if in doubt, an investor could always trade jets. Absolutely. JETS, an ETF of airline stocks, which has a very similar chart to Delta. I don't know the weightings of this. Let me see if I can find the weightings for you of jets. 1 second here. I'm going to go to my old favorite bar chart and go to their page, because if you type their symbol in, it'll show you the constituents and their weightings, which I think is a great feature. All right, 1 second. Here's jets. We'll go to constituents. Sometimes these ETFs get very overweight. And you can see here that's actually fairly even. About 50% of this portfolio, well, a little bit less than 50, call it 42%, is American Airlines, Delta, United Airlines, and Southwest holding the top spot. Now, why didn't I see we also got Air Canada on here. We got Alaska, which a lot of people talk about as being their favorite as well, on ALK, but that's only about 2% of the index. The reason I didn't bring up Southwest is predominantly domestic, and I don't believe that the international issues are going to have an impact on Southwest. So we can bring up the chart of Southwest here. LUV, love the name. They've actually been really flat. Granted, it's between $23 and $35, but really since this whole year we've been stuck in that range, bouncing back and forth. Where's Tom Barr? I must have said something to offend Tom a while back, because he has not been here in months upon months. But we'll put a yellow box there, which used to call the bar box. I'll have to change that name since he no longer supports the show. But really, you're bouncing between, looks like $92 and $35, and we're dead center right now. So at this point, no, I would say Southwest, leave it alone. I would imagine that they would probably do better domestically versus international, since they are. There we go. Tom is sensitive, maybe. He might be. Everybody's sensitive every now and again. It's funny because I can say one word and people who are very, very loyal for year upon year just disappear. I get it. Or you just get bored with the topic. Don't agree with what I have to say, or just don't like my style, or just get sick of me. It happens. I hope that happened to him too. I think he's fine. He found a couple other people that I think he liked better than this show, so he went over there. I think. All right, so Kevin, I hope I answered your question. For me, I'm not going to be adding any to my portfolio. I don't think now's the time. When I look at the weekly time frame here, out of all of them that we've looked at, I just like the pattern. I do like this double bottom. Granted, it did break slightly below it, but for me, I think that buying American Airlines around that $10 mark is probably not a bad way to go. But is it going to rip? Is it going to be one of these ones you buy and just a face-melting move to the upside? I don't think so. I think it's actually going to be a slow grind, if anything. And if we keep these energy costs down, and judging by what happened with OPEC, I did dig into OPEC a little bit, and the current trend of oil, it looks like we're going to continue to go lower on crude oil, which would mean more profits for airlines. So I do think as we get into the third and fourth quarter of this year, I think airline stocks are going to have a big rip. We will see. We will see later on this year. Maybe I'll make a little note over here. I have all these notepads on my desk. I should take one of them and just say, these are the calls I've made. By Q3, Q4, I think we'll see airline stocks start to turn and have a good trajectory to the upside with better than expected earnings as a lot of the uncertainty disappears. So there you go. Long-winded answer, Kevin. Was a 15-minute answer on your question there. Let's talk about other components. Actually, let me catch up on chat here. Jets has Boeing in it, probably helping. Yeah, but the weighting there was light. So Boeing is only 2.5% of that index. It's really the heavy hitters were the 10 percenters. And it's funny how there's 4 10% companies in here, and then it drops to, SkyWest at 3.5%. But that was Southwest, United, Delta, and Americans, which are the ones we looked at. And certainly we could look at a lot of these other ones. But keep in mind, some of these aren't exactly your normal airlines, right? So Jets has Trip.com in it. Huh? What? There's Qantas. Someone asked about Qantas. Oh, yeah, there they are. You've got TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor's on airline stock. Expedia. So you got to be careful with these indexes. It's nice to know, and that's why I love coming to Bar Chart or other sites that have this breakdown of the constituents. Sometimes, this is a big problem I see people have with their 401ks and investment accounts. I'm not a financial advisor. You guys all know that. I don't give financial advice. I just talk about my trades and markets. I have looked at some of my friends' investment portfolios, and it's surprising. They'll have like 3 different mutual funds, and when you break apart the constituents or components of that mutual fund, you're like, the top 5 holdings are the same in all of them. So how diversified are you really? If your true goal is diversification, you should be typing in your ETFs into this type of screener and seeing what sort of overlap you have. Because obviously, if I'm buying United Airlines and I'm buying jets, well, I'm still buying more United Airlines. That's the heavy weighting there. Market says crude oil down because corporations are expecting an economic slowdown. That as well as drilling, that as well as OPEC increasing production, right? Again, they've increased production. So you have a lot of variables pushing crude oil to the downside. And a lot of people are expecting lower demand. And I think that's the big piece. If we go into a recession, you have less demand, for crude oil, and that continues to push prices down. I need to do more research. I have not had time. My apologies, but I would love it. Now, maybe one of you guys can help me out with this. At what point do we see crude oil go so low that your refineries and your extractions and your drillers here in the United States shut down? Just say, let's turn it off. We're done pumping. Or they continue to pump and they're just not selling the oil, because if they sell it per barrel, they're losing money on every one. So they'll just hoard it and wait for it to come back, right? There's going to be that point, and I don't know where that is. But if oil keeps going down, certainly airlines, like many on this list, will probably benefit from it unless they've hedged themselves incorrectly. All right, let's go. He's not ill. I see his post on LinkedIn. Yeah, I don't know. I said something to offend him. That's probably what happened. Let's go into Tesla. So you guys know when we talked about Tesla several months back, my concern was the backlash on Musk and the backlash on Tesla vehicles because of what Doge is doing and talking about their impact, these Teslas around the world, and how those sales might get hurt. Now, you had some people who were saying, look, I didn't even want a Tesla, but I'm going to buy one now to support Elon Musk, which I'm sure there was some people that did that. But the numbers were pretty wild as far as the impact on Tesla, and I didn't memorize them all, so I'll read here. They go off of registrations, and the real data that came out today was about the European Union. So when we look at the European Union, they talked about registrations in the UK dropping 60%. I mean, that's a pretty significant month-over-month drop. In Denmark, they're down 67%. France down 59%. Sweden down 81% registration. So what that's telling us is that there's a lot of people dumping their Teslas, or not, and certainly not buying any new ones. That was one of the main reasons that I had said I was looking for Tesla to drop even further here, and I was really hoping we get down to that 180 mark, or at least get sub 200. Now, again, it's not a car company. It's not a car company. It's a technology company, and today they were hurt a little bit, down 1.75%, still trading at $275. But it has me a little bit nervous for anyone who's long on Tesla here, that negativity on Europe, in Europe and other parts of the world, could start to have a dramatic impact on Tesla. Now, did it impact them on this April 22nd earnings announcement? I think it was just starting. Your next earnings announcement, which I think is going to be the monster one here, is going to be on Tuesday, July 29th. Now, I'm going to put a little line a vertical line on that one just so we can see as it's approaching. I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty bad earnings announcement. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Again, anything can happen. We know there's so many different factors that could help Tesla here as far as self-driving cars, as far as robotics, as far as energy. But just the number of vehicles being sold, produced, delivered, I think is going to suffer greatly on that big vertical gold dashed line I have on your screen here. And who knows? Aren't a lot of European countries rethinking their green initiatives? I think everybody is a little bit. At least how quick they want to move forward. I remember hearing a couple years back that, we're going to have all of our vehicles electric by 2030. Unless you put in major grid systems to help support that, there's no way we could get those levels. And maybe that's the same over in Europe. I think a lot of people are going to backpedal on their stance on electric vehicles and slow down at least their forecast. I know that they're pushing for it, but yeah, I didn't read it, the actual numbers there, Liz. I didn't look at that, but I have heard a lot of it as being, maybe it's 2040 or 2050 we'll go full EV. As bad as the prior quarter, can't be worse. I don't know, Austin. I think it can. I think it could be worse. Remember, they missed on deliveries. Deliveries were down. I don't have the full spec sheet here of earnings for Tesla in front of me. But if those numbers are showing month-over-month declines that are that substantial for the UK and many European countries, then their next quarter could be far worse. And here's the part that I don't like. I am not privy to that data, neither are most of you. Most of us are stuck with what the mainstream media tells us. However, as we know, there are analysts out there that are literally flying drones over the factories of Tesla to count the number of vehicles to see if they're actually delivering, what the holdups are, what the production looks like. And those guys will know ahead of time, and we'll probably start to see that information leaking into the price charts going forward. I was going to do a poll here, but I'm not sure what the poll would be. I was going to say, do you think they're going to have good earnings or bad earnings on the July 29th? But that's subjective, right? Good, according to their most recent forecast, which they've pulled, right? Their forecast for the next quarter. I don't know. I won't do a poll for that one. I'd just say, it's just a car company. I know, technician. I know. It's not just a car company. Impossible to have all EVs on the road. Too many people can't afford to buy a new or used Tesla. Yeah, but have you guys seen Slate? Have you guys all seen the Slate vehicle? We had this discussion with a buddy of mine. I'd never heard of it, and he brought it up. Let me share it with you. And have you guys heard of Slate? Yes or no? Just type in the chat. I'm curious what you guys think. Ooh, excellent. My cause above didn't make sense. I guess other EVs you can buy. Right, so, cool. You guys haven't heard of this? Prepare to be, I don't know whether you're going to be offended, disgusted, or wowed by this one. So here's one thing that I think prevents some vehicles from succeeding. When you look at like a Toyota pickup truck, which is what I have, they're not inexpensive, right? I mean, for what they are, they're not a bad price. You're going to pay $30,000 for a Toyota 4x4. You get it fully loaded like mine, you're probably looking at about $40,000. But one thing that makes them great is there are so many aftermarket parts. It's almost like a kid playing with the little toy car. You can just swap out all these different pieces and customize it any way you want. To me, that brings in a lot of appeal because, I can buy just the little simple base model and I can build on top of it. Tesla has none of that, right? You can't really do much customization here. Yeah, exactly, Daniel. Jeeps are probably the king of that, right? You got all kinds of crazy. You buy the basic Jeep and you can build out anything you want. It's wild. So what Big Eb just typed in, he says a Slate truck will be under 30,000. Yeah, I think it's even like in the mid-20s. Here's what it looks like. I ain't gonna lie. I think this looks like something out of a cartoon, it's just like a Simpsons video. It's just the pretty ugly car. Yeah, Okinola, Amazon, big backer here. Why is this important? Well, if you look at this really bad looking car, in my opinion, they're all the same. It's just this base model. Look at the rims. There are no frills. There's nothing. It's just a simple, tiny truck. And I'll show you a couple things here in a second where you can compare them. It's pretty funny when you compare them next to other vehicles. Let me see here real quick if I can find it. So it doesn't come with a stereo. There's no stereo, but it has this little clip here so you can put your little Bose speaker in there and connect it to your phone. I mean, hey, if you're trying to cut costs, stereo is a big thing. Like in my truck, I made sure I had a good stereo system because I like the electronics package, right? I'm a tech person, so I want to have touch controls and navigate. I want all that. This has none of that. And it bases off the assumption that you're using your cell phone for your navigation anyway. You're using your cell phone for your music anyway. So why should we put a system in? You can just plug that stuff in. It's an interesting approach. So they saved there with cost. Let's see if there's one where you can build one. Let me see if I can. So here you go. Personalize your slate. So you can start off with just the basic vehicle here and then start adding things to it. So you go to personalize, and here you can buy a different paint kit with a roof rack. Different paint. They all, by the way, are one color. There is no other color than the base slate color. They're all wraps. They're all wraps. So they just have put whatever you want. But notice this one here, put on some slightly different tires and paid for the upgrade and has a roof rack. You go through here, this one's got a back rack on it, a little lift kit, some running boards. So here's the thing. I think it looks absolutely stupid. But to the point that was made, I think that was from Lisa. A lot of people can't afford to buy a Tesla, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, especially millennials who are still on mom and dad's couch. Ford Broncos have taken off because I think they have a cool look to them. This one, when you see the size of this compared to other vehicles, that's where you're going, oh, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, it's way different than other vehicles. So you guys may have seen the Maverick, the Ford Maverick. It's actually smaller than the Ford Maverick. But you can go here and pick on your color wraps. So you can get it any color you want. You want it like a chrome looking thing, it's mirror, black, whatever. You have different lighting packages. So basically, if this vehicle can have enough add-ons, enough parts, enough accessories, then I think it'll probably do rather well because you're going to have a lot. It's all electric. Yeah, Eric, it's all electric. It'll probably do really well because it will be affordable to a lot of people. Is it big? Does it take up a lot of space? No, it's really small. I'm going to see if I can find the graphic where you can see it side by side with another vehicle. And it's kind of crazy when you see how small it is compared to other ones. Let me see if I can find it for you. Apologize if I'm scrolling through here. Here you go. Check out this picture. So if you guys can see, that's the Slate truck next to a Chevy Silverado EV. That the white silhouette is the Silverado EV. Here's the Ford Maverick, which if you guys have seen the Maverick, it's really small. This thing is like 1.5 to 2 feet shorter than the Maverick. So Big Eb, it's got big in his name. I'm assuming he's at like 6 foot something. You're gonna look so goofy driving around in a Slate, right? You're just not gonna fit. You might have to cut the roof out to fit your head through. But for someone like me, who's I'm 5'8", this might be acceptable as a around the town vehicle. Now here's what I own. Here's my Toyota pickup truck. This is a 1985 Toyota. Remember, the 1985 Toyotas were super, super tiny. This thing is just a hair bigger than the Toyota pickup from 1985. How many passengers? I think 2 comfortably. I don't think you're going to get a third person in there. Now, they do have an SUV kit. And notice it's the same truck. It just has a camper shell, and they put back seats in it. So that's it versus, here's a Jeep Wrangler against it. So the Jeep Wrangler it looks like about a foot shorter than this SUV version. Here's a Kia Soul. I mean, this thing is slightly bigger than the Kia Soul. So they're really tiny. Anyway, when I want to meet up with a real truck and an accident with this, no. But to Lisa's point, it's an entry price point vehicle. And a lot of cars right now, in the 20s and 30,000, I think there'd be a lot of people that would like this. And I personally would not, but if it had a lot more accessories, I say accessories, I think I might actually be interested, just as an around-the-town vehicle. I don't drive much. I really don't drive much at all. I think I probably drive 6,000, maybe 7,000 miles a year. So for me, not that big a deal. An around-town EV car might be fine. It's just super tiny. I like having a little bit of safety around me, but I think it's a great idea, honestly. Because, again, if you build a community, if I'm Bezos, I'm going to have all these accessories on Amazon. I'll have a whole section where you can buy Slate directly from Amazon, and you can buy all of your parts there, and I'll make them very cheap and allow you to really customize this thing and make it your own. the more people that buy it, the more discounted those parts and accessories become. And I think it's a pretty interesting idea. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Right now, it's pre-order. $50 to lock in and reserve your spot right now. But hey, we got more competition in the EV space. We've been saying it for years. Amazon already has a pretty good stake in Rivian. And I think they did that more for delivery. And, now we're going into the commercial or retail passengers. Why not? Anyway, thought you guys might enjoy that. And if you hadn't seen it, I think you're going to start to see them probably in I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. These may be all over the place just because they're cheap. They're cheap vehicles. Okay, so we're talking about EVs. May as well continue on that slate. Oh, see what I did there? Continue on with that slate. Oliver says I might get a Rivian. I'll tell you, I like Rivian too. Other than the clown headlights, I'm a fan of Rivian. I like what they're doing. Now, I did not check Rivian's numbers today, but we can go look at the earnings calendar here. They did report earnings. Let's just go and see what old Rivian did. Let's see. They're waiting on the list because it's not that big. Hold on. There you go. So Rivian, it says here that they still haven't reported, but if we look at the Rivian share price, I'll bust this up to a 5-minute time frame so we can see it. They reported. They have to have reported. Look at that swing here in 5 minutes. Talk about a popcorn trade of the day. Rivian in the after hours jumped 5.2% and then fell to where it was down 3.93% and pretty much just slightly lower in the after hour session. So my guess is there was some announcement happened. They had a big whip. And here they are down in the after hour session about 0.97%. So not that big of a deal, but Rivian reported earnings after market today. One thing that I saw them say, you remember yesterday we talked about how Ford, so I'll bring up the Ford chart here. Ford said the tariff's going to cost them a $1.5 billion charge. So let's go look at Ford chart here. A decent day, up 2.65%, but Ford saying that they are going to incur a $1.5 billion. And then Rivian today saying that tariffs are going to impact them by $1.9 billion. $1.9 billion. Yeah, that's a pretty big charge there. Lisa Levitt says, don't shoot me, but I like the Chinese car BYD. Why would anyone want to shoot you? You like what you like. And I'll be honest, there's a car guy. It's funny, if you saw this guy in the street, you would never think that he's a car guy. Like he doesn't, I would not profile him as that. He's got these dreadlocks. He's a big dude. He's great. Really good at his car coverage. And he covers the BYD Motors and a lot of the Asian car companies. Man, they have some amazing vehicles over in China we don't have here. Not yet. Maybe, absolutely. Atticus, he says, Chinese EVs are next level. They really are. If you guys are ever bored, dive into the YouTube rabbit hole and just say review of Chinese cars. Holy cow. I mean, there was one, I cannot remember the name of it. I wanted to buy this car like on the spot. If it was here in America, I would have bought this vehicle. It had so many luxury amenities and just, it felt like a Maybach SUV. Maybach is the super high-end Mercedes, which is like, $400,000 or $500,000 for those stupid things. But this was 60 grand. So 60 grand to get a fully loaded EV SUV that's just loaded with amenities. Really cool. But if we get hit with those tariffs, Chinese cars will be so expensive. Yeah. And I don't think I think that's unavoidable. I think that Trump will continue to play hardball because if you let BYD come over here and Lee Motors and what's the other one that's out there? VinFast, which you can see the VinFast EV cars on the streets. They're nice. See if I can bring up VinFast. Yeah, VinFast. They look pretty nice. You had more tariffs on those ones. Yeah. They'll take away too much U.S. business if we don't. I think I may have shown this one to you guys. I've used this as an example many times. When you look at this VinFast company, they make an EV car. They're pretty nice. Right now their share price is $3.69. But this has something that I've never seen before, and I've mentioned it, but I'll just go back through it again and show you. One thing that you should always pay attention to. People always focus on price, right? Oh, how expensive is it? Don't focus on price. Price is not the ultimate answer. Price, it's expensive, it's cheap. That's neither here nor there, in my opinion. You've got to look at how many shares are outstanding. And I mentioned this before. This company called VinFast, ticker symbol is VFS. I'll start with Apple, just to give you an idea of what I'm looking for. you have two numbers. You've got outstanding shares and you have float. So let's go here. This is Apple. We'll go to statistics and I'll show you this. Yeah, VinFast is Vietnamese. Yep. If you scroll down here, Apple has 14.94 billion shares outstanding. And the float is 14.91. That means that there's 30 million shares that are not on the market. Those 30 million are probably held by Apple or an insider, right? So there's usually a separation between float, which is what's tradable on the market today, and outstanding shares, which is every share that exists. Now watch, I'll look at Microsoft too, just for fun. So here's Microsoft, same thing. Microsoft has outstanding shares of 7.43 billion and the float 7.42. So they're almost the same, right? When you look at VinFast, this is like run to the hills. So I want you guys to stay away from VFS. The total number of outstanding shares, I'll zoom in here so you guys can see it, is 2.34 billion. So based off what we just saw, VinFast should have a float of about 2.2 billion. No, not even close. It is 49.77 million. So there's 49 million shares available for you to buy and sell, but out of the whole world, there's 2.34 billion, which means that about 2% of all of the shares of VinFast are on the market. 98% of those shares have yet to come to market, which means that price you see on VFS most likely is going to experience some pretty significant down move. It's because this is a SPAC, specialty purpose acquisition company, right? It starts off at $10 and all these insiders have millions and millions of shares. It's crazy. Yeah, VinFast are like 50, 60 grand. Let's go look at their cars. I haven't sat in one of them. It'd be interesting to check them out, but they look nice. There's your VinFast. You go to the models here. It looks like it's just a Kia SUV in my opinion. BYD can park in tight spaces. I think it parks all by itself. Since we're on it now, let's go with BYD Motors. See what their cars look like. A little bit better, I think. That Han. I mean, this looks like, it looks similar to a Tesla, right? It's got that nice slope back, the little triangle back windows. But that's it. They only show me this one. I thought they had an SUV one. I'll look up and find out what, correct, you cannot buy them in the United States. Not yet, right? That may change in the future. Oh, look at the inside. Let's see if it'll let me look at that one. Explore. I don't want to keep scrolling. Let's bring up that one model. There's your exterior. Interior. Oh, that looks nice. But I mean, this isn't that much different than the Tesla. Beautiful. I mean, I love it. None of those have plans to drive themselves. And that's, I thought that BYD was planning on that. But I'm not sure. I know that that's the end goal ultimately. Look, what are they going to do, Austin? They'll end up taking pointers from Tesla. They'll probably find some way to reverse engineer it, get all the data, or just start collecting all the data themselves and have FSD in China. It's going to happen one way or the other. I mean, as a government, as a country, you're better off having everyone with full self-driving cars, and then you control the speed and direction and location and how they move. So more government control. But yeah, beautiful looking car. Spacious, luxurious. I mean, it looks really nice. It's just like a really high-end sedan, and it's not that expensive. Yep, the DeepSeek effect. AI. So you got lane departure systems, but not FSD, not yet. At some point down the road, we probably get that. All right, I went off on some tangents. Let's go back to this bad boy right here, which is Trump versus Canada. So here you have a little graphic, USA versus Canada. Of course, he met with the Prime Minister of Canada today, and I just saw snippets of it. But I think it just kind of made it seem, some parts were amicable, other parts were contentious. And I don't think there was anything really resolved or settled from that. Of course, the conversation goes up at being the 51st state, with which the Prime Minister said, absolutely not, some things are not for sale. And Trump's like, well, maybe, we'll see, and time will tell. More tension than before, I believe. So to me, this just adds more negativity to the trade dispute between the United States and Canada. I mean, they're our best trading partners. and we're making enemies out there. So hopefully we can resolve that piece quick. But as we look forward, I think that's one of those pieces that's going to continue to drag our markets lower. Even though it's not a major monetary thing, it's just you're having issues with your neighbors, and you shouldn't have that. So I won't go further down the road than that, but I'm kind of watching the talks that go on with President Trump. Tomorrow, obviously, is going to be the big day, right? Tomorrow we have our rate announcements, etc., and I'm sure there will be some fireworks at that press conference, as you were all aware. Like I said, Trump rambled on about unnecessary things, putting people down in front of Carney. He does it all the time, right? It's weird because he'll say something polite about someone, and then as soon as that person does anything he doesn't like, well, he's an idiot, he's stupid, I don't like him. It's kind of depressing. You shouldn't talk about people like that, but it works for him apparently. So we'll see how this continues to escalate or de-escalate. Made it very clear that, I don't have to sign anything. We just have to have an agreement, and we'll reduce the tariffs. I have a feeling things could get resolved fairly quickly, but it's going to be fairly lopsided. So I think countries are waiting and holding out here. Hopefully, we can get this resolved sooner rather than later, and our markets will get back to normal. If not, again, I'm in the bias to the downside, even though I am holding long positions. Those long positions, what pray tell? Let's get this back to daily. So I have the MSTR that I told you about yesterday. So that's a brand new position because mine was taken away from me last week. Last Friday. So I've got the 370s there. I did PLTR. I got Palantir 101s. So I sold 101 strikes today on Palantir. There's a lot of discussion. This thing is way overvalued. And if you go look at their financials, you've got a PE ratio of 549. And people are freaking out about that. But remember, so did Amazon, so did Google, so did Apple at one point had these incredibly lofty valuations when they were in their growth phase. And Palantir is in that growth phase where their technology and services are being now brought up onto retail speed. And again, I mentioned I've got a good friend who is big in the AI space. And he just looked at me and he goes, dude, Palantir is going to absolutely crush it going forward. He goes, I work with their tech stack and it's incredible. So made me biased, even though they may not look that great right now with a 12% drop today and another 2% in the after hours. Maybe I'll end up holding this thing as of Friday, but it'll probably be a longer term thing where I'll sell covered calls against it for a period of time. But right now, that's the other trade I made today. So there we go. That expires on Friday. I'm predominantly just doing weekly unless I get a futures trade set up that I like. There we go. Let's see. Oftentimes, it's the most difficult to resolve differences with your friends and family. Yeah. How many families really had issues between relatives during COVID? Let's see. What else we got? Yeah, I got you, Chad. I see what you're saying. And then Mexico will be another one, right? Shouldn't have gone off that. Yeah, Big Eb's a San Diego guy. He could leave. Hi, the prices of some places are pretty darn attractive. So I've been looking at some real estate recently with some nice land. Saw a nice 2-acre parcel. I was like, ooh, I could do 2 acres. 2 acres is make me feel like my youth. All right, let me go into tomorrow's stuff, and I'll wrap up here. Economic counter for tomorrow is the big one. Let's bring up that EC right now. Boom. The 7th, of course, it is FOMC day. All eyes will be on Jerome Powell. Expect a very thinly traded morning, meaning between market open, 9:30 Eastern, and this announcement at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I expect to be thin trading, very low volume, which means you could have very jerky, erratic moves, right? That creates a lot of problems. Right now, expectations are we're staying at 4.5%. The big news is at 2:30 Eastern, right? That's when we will get a press conference with Jerome Powell, and we'll see what he has to say about all this stuff. And as I mentioned yesterday, I was mocking Steve Leisman, but actually impersonating Steve Leisman, who will probably ask him about the president's request to lower rates, and don't we have all those 3 variables lined up that should cause for rates to go lower? And Powell's going to say, well, I need to be data dependent. I have to be data dependent, and that'll probably be the outcome. But he could slip up, and expect a lot of fireworks at that press conference. So keep your eye on that one. I will be watching that one. That's going to be 11:30 my time. Good news is I have 11:30 off tomorrow. I'll actually be speaking in Larry's options class, talking about digital assets tomorrow. So that'll be kind of fun. And then on your earnings calendar for tomorrow, we do have some more names. There's 425 companies reporting tomorrow. on that list, the big stuff, Novo Nordisk, Uber. Uber has been a very interesting one. If you listen to Colin Teddards on the Investor Channel, he has been just slamming Uber. He's not a fan of Uber, clearly. It's been on a great run. It's gone from about $62 all the way up to $86 over the past month and a half. Right now trading at $85.83. Also on the earnings calendar, you've got ARM, major chip maker, ARM. They have not done as great. Well, 80 to 120, so we'll take a 50% increase in a period of less than 30 days. Not too shabby, but off its peak at 180, still down considerably. So those are some of your bigger notable names reporting tomorrow. You also have Fortinet, so we'll talk about that one. And of course, it's all about Jerome Powell. Lisa says, talking about options on crypto, can you even trade those? You can trade like options on IBIT. I do trade options on IBIT, but that's your main one, and they'll probably start to be more soon as we go. I don't know if you can do options on BITO. I haven't even looked at it, but who likes BITO? JD says, what's needed for up or down with Powell if everything is expected to stay where it's at? Well, let me check the timer. I got a meeting I got to get to. With Jerome Powell, obviously he's got his dual mandate, right? He has to keep prices down, and he's got to keep jobs full. Jobs are staying constant, and inflation is dropping. So it does open the door to the argument that he could lower rates and not impact the markets in a negative way, right? That to me is good options on BITX. There's another one. Thanks, Tofi. What's up, Frankie? So it's just that pressure of knowing that Trump wants to juice the market, right? He wants a shot in the arm. Let's drop 25 basis points. That would give him that shot in the arm that he wants. And Trump, it would be correct here. He would be correct in saying, now's the time because inflation's under control. We've seen declines on the core PCE price index and unemployment stays the same. So how can you argue that? That's going to be Trump's talk point. And this could get contentious starting on Thursday morning because after the press conference on Wednesday, we'll talk about this tomorrow, but after that press conference, whatever Jerome Powell does, Trump is going to attack it. And if Powell doesn't cut rates, Trump is going to lose his mind on Thursday morning. So be ready for that. I promise you're going to hear President Trump lose his doo-doo over Powell saying he's going to hold rates at 25 basis. He's an idiot. He's a loser. He's stupid. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's hurting America. My citizens are impacted by Powell. He's going to lambaste him, man. Tear him apart. And more name calling. Oh, yeah. That's the thing. I remember in school I was reprimanded for calling anybody names, and here now it's societally accepted. I'm going to, right, Yvonne says he won't wait until Thursday. Yeah, it'll be at 2:01, right after the rate announcement comes out. Just bam, just go and get him. Either way, it'll be exciting. And Thursday, by the way, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to have Bill Addis on the program, so it should be fun. Yeah, Margaret, expect more attention. We just have to sit back and laugh at it. Don't get upset at it and frustrated because there's really nothing that you can do. Just look back and go, they're acting like children. Let's let them do their thing, and hopefully we can make some money off those swings. So, all right, that's going to do it for me, everybody. Again, Kevin, thank you for the question on the airlines. It is interesting to take a peek at that, and I do think that there is some plausible gains. Is it done right now? The slide done? I'm not sure. But certainly buying United or American or Delta at 40 to 50% off, not a bad idea long term, especially with energy prices dropping as much as they are. Remember, a lot of that is driven because uncertainty. Everyone's saying recession, which I still think we're going to get a recession, but maybe we don't, right? And if we don't get a recession, then all of a sudden airlines can be back on, prices could surge. So we'll see how that one pans out in the long run. What did Vegas say? Powell should say they are raising. Now, that would be great. Yeah, Bill Addis was one of my favorite bond guys. He'll be on Thursday. Not Wednesday, but Thursday. So I will see you guys tomorrow. If you got any comments, questions, feedback, let me know. Email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com. For those of you who are new, hit that like and subscribe button. I will see y'all tomorrow.